Hello friends, it is Stasia and welcome back to my channel. So today we will be wrapping up the month of October. I will say that it wasn't my best month necessarily, and the entire last week I read not a single page. So that'll be interesting, but it also wasn't like the worst month. I still got a lot of reading done, but we'll get into that in a second. First I will quickly show you my haul of books that I got. So the first book I got was Secret Lives. Seems like a murder mystery sort of vibe, not entirely sure. And then I got a Sweet Low Country Proposal, which I'm super excited for. Apparently the author is part Filipino, which I also am. So I will be interested to see how that works out in this book. And then I won a giveaway on a Facebook group. So I actually got the entirety of the Empire High series by Ivy Smoke, which I've already read them all and I love them all. And I'm so happy to finally own them all. These covers aren't everyone's favorite. These books have two separate covers, but I love these covers, so I'm happy I have them. So the first one is called Untouchables. The second is called Elite. The third is called Betrayal. The fourth is called Matchmaker. And then the fifth is called Runaway. The sixth book is called Homecoming. And that is coming out, I believe, in the middle of November. So I'm excited for that to come out. These books kind of leave off on cliffhangers, but they're also super entertaining. So those were all of the books that I got this month. Now we'll go into some quick stats and then we'll go over all of the books that I actually read. So this month I read a total of 14 books. And that came out to a total of 6,206 pages. Of those, 5 were fantasy, 1 was mystery, 7 were romance, and 1 was sci-fi. As for my formats, I did 8 physical books and 3 ebooks. And then 11 were either primary audio or a mix between audio and another format. So that is my stats, and now we'll go straight into the books. So the first book I read was My Brother's Forbidden Friend by Piper Rain. I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was lots of fun. This basically is a obviously like brother's best friend sort of romance. So this follows our 2 main characters, Chevelle and Cameron. So basically, Cameron comes from a lot of money, but they're both living in this small town. And our main girl, Chevelle, her own like boat charting business. Like she takes people out to fish and stuff. And then Cameron ends up kind of being her competition. One way or another, something happens. And that ends up happening. And at the same time, Cameron is forced to live with Chevelle for certain reasons. So that was a fun time. I loved the banter between the characters, the connection. There was a great balance between like emotional but also like lighthearted fun, which I super enjoyed. And then the next book I read might come as a surprise, but that was Akamath, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book after ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I didn't love that book. So it is very surprising that I ended up picking up this book, but I'm not going to go into synopsis because then it's kind of hard within like spoilers. Anyways, I gave this book 5 stars. Loved it. I understand why people said that I needed to continue the series before reading it off. I love the story in this. It was just a great time. I can't really say much because it is a series, but I will say that I loved our characters here more than I thought I was going to love them. And yeah. And then after that, I kind of just went on a bend and read the whole series. So next I read ACOWAR, A Court of Wings and Ruin, but I only gave this book 3 stars, 3.5 stars. It wasn't, after the story in book 2, I feel like this book kind of fell off a little bit. So it wasn't my favorite. I wish it kind of went a different way, focused on a few other things. There were some things in this book that were for convenience. Characters popped in and out, so it was a bit weird in my opinion, but it's fine. And then I read the novella, A Court of Frost and Starlight, and I gave this book 3 stars. It was just a fun novella. It didn't add like a lot to the story, but it was fun to like see the characters again, so gave it 3 stars. And then I read the most recent book, A Court of Silver Flames, and I gave this book 4 stars. I know that this is a lot of people's favorite, but I still really struggled with Nesta and her being the way she is, so that book was kind of a hit or miss, but obviously I gave it 4 stars. I still super enjoyed it. It was a fun time. I probably will continue with the series depending on what's happening, but yeah, this series has definitely been up and down for me. So next I read Final Proposal by Kay Bromberg. This is the 3rd and final book in her Sin series. Each book follows a new brother. So this was the brother Ford's story, and I really enjoyed it. It follows Ford and Ellery. One night there's like a storm. They both get trapped in a bar. They start talking. The next day they don't really think of anything. They kind of just said, oh wow, it was nice meeting them, it is what it is, until one day they find themselves competing for the same property and end up just becoming a team and needing to work together. So this book had a lot of like forced proximity, which is one of my favorite tropes. So I gave this book 5 stars. Super loved it. I love Ford and Ellery. I felt like Ellery was such a strong character. Kay Bromberg does that very well. Like, her females are always very strong. They know what they want. They go for it. It's a fun time. Also, the growth in each character, Ford and Ellery, from beginning to end was just great. In the beginning of the book, they were both definitely going through stuff, trying to figure out their life, what they were doing, things like that. But then by the end of the story, things got figured out. It was nice. I really enjoyed it. We are just going to pretend like I did not wait like 2 days to continue this video. Nonetheless, clearly I'm very different, and that is because my camera died. Then I went to charge it and just completely forgot to film the rest of the video. So we're going to continue. According to my list here, I finished off with Gods and Monsters coming up next. So Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahiran. This is the 3rd and final book in the Serpent and Dove trilogy. I super enjoyed the first 2 books, loved the characters and everything. With this book, I gave it 3 stars. I can't give too much of a synopsis or thoughts just because it is in a series. I don't want to spoil anything. But I feel like with this book, it kind of tried to do too much. There was a lot going on, and I felt like some things got incredibly repetitive with the last books and within this book itself. It's also super long, and I feel like it could have been cut down a lot. I understand she wanted like a lot to happen, maybe in the 3rd book to go out with a bang, but with how high-paced and everything the first 2 books were, I felt like this one just tried to do too much, and that led me to a 3 star. Next, I read As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the 3rd and final book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. Absolutely love this series. I gave this book 5 stars. I can definitely understand why this one may not be for everyone, but I still loved the pace. I loved the overall mystery and how Pip needed to figure out this entire thing. I feel like this one focused a bit more on Pip. She kind of felt like this was a more personal thing, like it was directly impacting her. So we get a lot more of her in this one, and I loved it. I love her story. I love the way that Holly Jackson portrays her as a character. I love the mysteries. It always keeps me on my toes. It was just such a fun time. This book was definitely high stakes, fast paced. Love to see it. Then I read Aurora's End. This is the 3rd and final book in the Aurora cycle by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I gave this book 4 stars. I did enjoy it, but at the end of book 2, something happens, and so in book 3 it gets very confusing. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed everyone's journey and where they were trying to get. But for me, it got very confusing a lot of the times because there were so many characters in different situations that we needed to follow. But overall, I really enjoy this series. It was a nice wrap up to everything. I just wish that they tried to do a little bit less because I did get confused throughout reading the book, but that's fine. Then I read Take a Hint, Dani Brown, and I gave this book 5 stars. This book follows Dani. This is the second book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. The first one is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. So in Take a Hint, Dani Brown, we follow Dani and Zafir, who is an ex-rugby player. Yeah, so he's an ex-rugby player and now kind of does security in Dani's building. One day there is a drill of some sort in the building. Dani didn't know, so she ends up getting trapped in an elevator and Zafir goes to find her. And as they come out, Zafir is carrying her, and there are students there who capture that video and post it online, and that kind of blows up for the both of them. They decide it would be mutually beneficial for them to fake date and kind of help each other out a little bit. So they end up fake dating. We all know how fake dating goes. I love Zafir. I love Dani. She's a very strong personality, like all these sisters are. I love seeing these sisters again. I felt like Dani was a very complex character in what she was dealing with and how she could learn to trust again. But Zafir was there for her. He was very understanding and I loved to see it. Then I finished off the trilogy with Actor Age Eve Brown. She is the youngest sister. I gave this book 5 stars as well. So in this book, Eve is looking for a job after she kind of shuts down this thing. And her parents are like, hey, you need to have a little bit of responsibility. So she goes for a drive and runs past a B&B and sees that they're hiring for a chef. So Eve likes to bake, so she's like, all right, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna see what they can offer me, what all of this stuff was going on. But one thing leads to another. She meets the owner. It's not necessarily like they don't kick it off right at the beginning, but eventually Eve does end up working there and it's just a fun time. I felt like Jacob, the B&B owner and love interest, I felt like he was such a fun character to have with Eve. They didn't necessarily get along. They very much disagreed on a lot of things, but Eve got to discover herself a lot and Jacob was very much out of his comfort zone, and I just really enjoyed them both. The last 2 books are also series. So the first of that is The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This is the second book in the Kiss Quotient series. So this book follows Kai and Esme. So basically Kai's mother goes to Vietnam and approaches Esme and says that, hey, I will pay for you to come to America because I'm trying to look for a wife for my son Kai. Kai is not interested in this at all, but he says, okay, fine, she could stay with me, whatever. So basically, Esme comes to the US and is trying to make Kai fall in love with her because she thinks it'll be a very good opportunity for her and her family. At first, Kai really isn't seeing it, but Esme is really trying her best to make things work to see if he could fall in love with her. And eventually, their barriers start breaking down. Fun time. So I gave this 4 stars. I felt their story was really nice, but I felt like a lot of their admissions and a lot of their progression was forced. Like they were never put much in a situation where they could make the choice. It was very much like a now or never, and I wish they had some of that freedom to make mistakes, to enjoy each other, to not have such high stakes in this relationship. Like I get it, but it just made it seem forced along. But overall, 4 stars, really enjoyed it. And then the last one I read was The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, and this is book 3 in the Kiss Quotient series. So this follows Anna and Kwan. So Anna has been in a long-term relationship. Her relationship kind of takes a turn, and so she's trying to work on dating apps to see if she can have a one-night stand, just to see like how it goes for herself and stuff. So her one-night stand ends up being Kwan, but she realizes that she's not very good at this. She doesn't really want to do it. So it becomes pretty awkward pretty quickly. She's just trying to get out of it. But Kwan is like, you're gorgeous. Like, you know, we can make this work. So they never actually end up having the one night stand, but Kwan is like, hey, we can try again if this is something, you know, you actually want to try. And yeah, so they end up going through that. They keep meeting because the one night stand just keeps not happening. They keep going on like these dates, but they're not really dates. They're saying like they're just hanging out and stuff. And then one thing leads to another. Anna's family kind of, you know, a lot happens within her family, so things kind of take another turn there. And yeah, so I gave this book 4 stars. I loved Kwan. I thought he was an amazing hero. I loved getting to know Anna more and seeing her get to know herself a lot, because in the beginning of the story, she's really struggling with who she is now and how she can be successful and things like that. So I love seeing her grow. I love seeing Kwan. He was very patient, super nice hero, loved to see it. Their communication was a bit off, which it makes sense when the story progresses, like why things happen the way they did, but miscommunication or lack of communication isn't necessarily my favorite thing. So yeah, I ended up giving that 4 stars, which isn't bad at all. So still really happy with that. So with that, that is all 14 books that I end up reading in the month of October. It was supposed to be spooky month. It really ended up not being a spooky month, but you know, happens to the best of us. It's fine. Yeah, so that is everything that I have to say. I hope you enjoyed. If you've read any of these books or any of them are on your radar, let me know, chat with me. But yeah, so you can like, comment, and subscribe down below if you would like. All of my socials are in the description as always. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!